Well, you made the point. I just wanted folks to understand that there's a lot of diversity of opinion in Israel, and if you just read one newspaper article, you don't necessarily get to hear all of that flavor. I need, of course, to give you a chance to say something about Egypt and a broader perspective of what's happening in the Middle East. I don't know that any of us are in a position exactly to forecast what's going to happen in Egypt or what that means, but I'd be interested in your take and your perspective.
Yeah, as we're here in an institution of higher learning, of research, I will share with you a private confession, you know, as we are here in family. I've been studying the Middle East since for more than 37, I think, 37 years or more. And I've seen a couple of paradigms already being destroyed since I began. But I think what we are seeing now is, I think, if I can say so, a humbling moment for all us Middle Eastern analysts, Middle Eastern experts. And a lot of things are changing, and therefore I personally call to all my colleagues to also show restraint and modesty in their projections. A lot of it is partly the fault of our political masters, of the public. They don't. They all think that it's great that you know so much about the past, but what they really are interested in is what's going to happen in the future. And that's, of course, history is chaos theory. The fact that something went that way in the past doesn't mean that it will go that way in the future. I think I would like to mention three important paradigms that we have seen destroyed or seriously questioned in the last few weeks. One, the indestructible or the resilient nature of the Middle Eastern state. When 30-something years ago, when I began my formal studies at university, that was just after a period of incredible turmoil in the Middle East. Since the end of World War II and independence, there have been revolts, coup d'etat, etc. Since the end of the 60s, the beginning of the 70s, suddenly the Middle Eastern regimes found a way of actually staying in power. And since then, the Middle East was from that particular perspective, one of the most stable ones. The path, not only that, but actually popular republics like, in the Soviet style, popular republics, it's called a republic, but it's not very Republican, not democratic. Actually became even hereditary. The Hafez al-Assad was succeeded after a summarial change of constitution to allow that by his son. Hosni Mubarak was preparing the ground for the succession by his son Jamal. Gaddafi's sons are all around, and so on and so forth. This paradigm had withstood the trials of time for decades. It has, these states have fought Islamic extremism and armed insurgents and won. And suddenly, what they're bringing them down is a popular uprising. People coming out on the streets without any preparation, without anybody being behind that, because if there was somebody behind that, the Mukhabarat, the Secret Service, would have known that and have prevented it. And spontaneously, actually bringing down people that have fought all this war for 30 years. This is extraordinary. So this is a new question mark the resilience of the autocratic regimes in the Middle East. Second, we were very disappointed in the last couple of decades and the last time when we saw the power of Islamic organizations on one hand, including their offshoots, the crazy Islamic organizations. On the other hand, the feebleness, the weakness of democratic or liberal, or in the European sense, democratic opposition movements. Part of that was because actually the regimes were more effective in preventing their growth. But, you know, they didn't catch up. They weren't able to take off. And suddenly you see that people in Tunisia that went out to the streets, they were not the Islamists. They were not well, in Tunisia, the Islamist movement that had been actually eradicated was called An-Nahda. In Egypt, it was the Muslim Brotherhood. They were not them. There were people, many of them, you know, of the bourgeoisie, of the middle class, which in Middle Eastern terminology actually goes down to what Marxists would have called the petit bourgeoisie, and many disaffected intellectuals or people that have, or university graduates that can't find a job. Even considering the fact that, that the media actually, you know, interview people that speak their language. But it was them. The Muslim Brotherhood took us back seat. So that gives some hope that that takeoff of democratic movements that didn't happen in the last decades, maybe it will happen in an accelerated pace now? Question mark? One other one, which is not direct, the last one, it's not directly connected with the events in Cairo or Tunisia, is the paradigm of the fact that existing states, legacy of the imperial period when countries were actually carved out in conferences in Versailles and similar places, these national frameworks were untouchable. Not because they were so efficient, actually on the contrary, because of the idea that if you touch one, you open a whole Pandora box. And that was true in the Middle East, as it is true even maybe more so in Africa. And now Sudan is actually being divided. The first time that an Arab Muslim country is actually being, you know, actually allowing a piece of its territory to be seceded. That's, we have to see how this develops, but that's a very interesting development that haven't happened in the past. All this raises a lot of questions, but these are things that, that haven't happened before, and we are now seeing as they develop in front of our eyes.